November 10th Planning Commission meeting to order. And tonight we would like to call upon Commissioner Verplank to run the flag salute.
All right. Thank you. All please rise. Mark, you want to take this? Okay. All right. All right. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm sorry. I thought it was day on mid. I know. You've been practicing. My bad. Sorry. Okay, so tonight, public comments. If anybody has anything not on the agenda, we have none. So we'll move right on to our presentation item, and I will hand it over to Gail.
Yes, and this evening, Angel Fortes from our Public Works Department is here to give this report.
Good evening, Chairman Fuentes and members of the Planning Commission. The third quarter update from the Public Works Department is included in your meeting package. And I would like to call to your attention a few CIP projects that have recently been constructed or will be in the very near future. First project is the ADA improvements at Tamarisk Park, in which we've constructed an ADA accessible ramp from the street down into the park. And that project was completed in October this year. Also, we are currently under construction over at Portola. We are widening Portola as it crosses underneath the toll road from 2 lanes to 3 lanes. And that portion is just a striping job. But we're also constructing some landscape medians from the toll road to El Toro Road. Over at the Lake Forest Sports Park, a contractor is currently constructing steps and handrails and guardrails at the soccer concourse. And also he'll be adding lights at the main tot lot and also at the batting cages. And that construction should be completed in January 2017. Some upcoming construction projects over at Portola, we are resurfacing it from Alton Parkway over to El Toro Road. You'll get a new fresh coat of asphalt. Also, we're resurfacing Alton Parkway as the older part of Alton where it crosses over the toll road, and we'll be resurfacing it between Portola and Portola and Rancho Parkway. Over at Village Pond Park, we are currently in the advertisement phase. This project will be draining the pond and relocating the wildlife, the turtles and the fish, and redesigning the pond so that it's not so attractive for waterfowl to take off and land. I'd like to kind of brief you on the development side, what's going on over at Baker Ranch, where the City Council has approved 23 final track maps. The developers have built out their Phase 1 homes and are in construction of about they have completed about 30% of their production homes in the Phases 2 and 3. Over at Portola Center, in the northwest track, Baldwin has completed the 8 model homes and are in production of 12 homes in their Phase 1. They have also placed their first course of asphalt, and they have landscaped all their exterior slopes. On the south track, Landsea is about 70% complete in their rough grading, and they have installed the first of 5 underground water quality basins. Over at Parkside, Toll Brothers has completed their rough grading, installed their underground utilities, and placed their first course of asphalt on their residential street. They have also started construction of the model homes for their 3 product types. Over at Encanto, Meritage has completed their rough grading, the underground utilities, and have started the construction of their model homes. This concludes my update, and I will be happy to answer any questions.
Mark has a question.
I don't know if you know this, but how does one make a pond unattractive for waterfowl landing, or maybe you don't know that?
They put up signs that the birds can read.
Exactly. I don't know. I'm just curious
Well,
if you knew.
Currently, you have a big pond that has a large surface area, and the fowl uses the large surface area to land. It's like a long runway. Well, they're making the runways a lot shorter, so they can't take off and land.
So we do have an airport. Here?
Yeah, I have a similar airport in my backyard. They don't need that big of a runway to get in and out, but the waterfowl that I have are relatively small, and if it weren't against the law to discharge a firearm in the city, I'd be eating duck more often.
One other thing on that, and maybe this will be an enforcement issue, but every time I drive by there seems to be somebody parked there with a bag of food, and they're just got millions of them come around. What's the enforcement posture or status on enforcing the city ordinance and the sign and no fee? I mean, maybe Lieutenant Valentine could address that. I don't know. I know we've got, for lack of a better word, more important, pressing matters with the city, but anyway, maybe you could speak to that for a moment.
Chair and Commissioners would be happy to. There is a city ordinance for that makes it illegal to feed the wildlife, specifically the ducks at Village Pond Park. The Sheriff's Department does not take an active role and set up surveillance or stings or things like that to catch people feeding the ducks. However, if we receive a call for service, then we happily respond and enforce as appropriate. Our senior volunteers have been going out there for the last year educating patrons at the park and letting them know that there is an ordinance in play. With the park being delayed in its construction, that education process has just gone on longer. I believe there's members from the Community Services Department that sends park ambassadors out there as well on that educational campaign. I don't have the stats as far as how many citations and administrative citations have been issued by like code enforcement personnel or things like that, but I'm fairly confident within the Sheriff's Department we have yet to issue a citation.
And then can the community service officers and/or I don't suppose the senior volunteers can issue citations. Can the community service officers do that?
No, they cannot. Senior volunteers are strictly volunteers. They have no authority to detain an individual. And same with our community service officers as far as within the Parks and Rec office, right? They're civilians. They don't have that those laws of arrest or that authority to detain somebody and do that. Code enforcement does. However, once again, I don't know how many citations. I think the last count was under 5 as far as administrative cites that have been issued to patrons in the park. But,
okay.
Are there any more questions? Okay. Well, we're going to backtrack a bit and take a roll call, and let's just let the record reflect that all the planning commissioners are in attendance now. And then we will go on to our consent calendar, but I would like to pull the minutes of the October 13 meeting.
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar without the October 13th meeting.
I'll second.
Well, we pulled it, so then we'll just make 2 votes. So we'll vote on the consent calendar without October 13 minutes. One more time. Okay, there we go. Passes. And then I had made a public comment at the October 13 meeting, and so we don't jinx the whole season, UCLA water polo is undefeated on their road to the national championship, and it was listed that they had made, and I could get in real trouble with the coach if I started printing that, and then it doesn't happen. So we could just correct that. So I'd like to make a motion to approve it as corrected.
May I amend that?
Do you have more amendments?
Yes, there was a small issue there, and I thought it was too insignificant to mention it, but now that we are talking about it, it mentions there that I had taken 2 ethics courses, and that they were sponsored by the same law firm that represents a city. That's not true. Actually, it was the Orange County Planning Directors Association was one of the classes. The other one was the American Planning Association. So it's so minor I wasn't going to bring it, but now we're talking about it. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I think, Robert, you were dealing with the special meeting in October the 27th. Was that the one? Not the 13th?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, then do we need to amend, have a...
So we're talking about
because
October 13th
we were talking about
meeting.
the 13th.
Right now is what was pulled.
Yeah.
I believe that's the one.
Oh, no, no.
You know, actually, it's in both. I think you mentioned it at both of the
Yeah.
meetings, so we
All right.
recorded it twice. So we could make that change to,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was clear.
Okay, so there's been 2 corrections to the October 13 meeting and possibly one to the October 27th meeting. So if we could just get a motion on that?
Make a motion to do the corrections as presented and for the other proposal.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. We're slow voting tonight. Okay, that one, motion carries as well. Thank you. All right, so we are going to move on to our public hearing number 4. Gail.
yes, this item is a use permit for a request for beer and wine sales for off-site consumption at an existing Shell station. The report was prepared by Jennifer, but Nikki Wetzel is here this evening to give the staff report.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. This is a use permit for the sale of beer and wine at the Shell service station at Lake Forest and Trabuco. You'll recall last year the City Council adopted a policy for off-sale alcohol licenses and public convenience or necessity determinations, or PCNs, and approved a zoning code amendment requiring use permits for off-sale alcohol licenses. And this is actually the second one you've seen. The third one's also on the agenda tonight. The project is located in one of our few census tracts in the city that don't have any alcohol licenses, and this one is just for a use permit, not for a determination of public convenience or necessity. The applicant proposes to sell beer and wine only in an existing food mart at the Shell station. No alcoholic beverages would be served or consumed on the site. The display area includes approximately 10 square feet in a refrigerated cooler area to the rear of the store, as well as some dry storage area and gondolas and more in the middle of the store. The agenda report includes the Development Services Director and the Police Services report, as required by the policy. And the reports generally conclude that there is not expected to be any nuisance activities, any requirement for additional police services associated with this use permit, and that it would be compatible with the surrounding uses. Security provisions that are either in place or are proposed include interior and exterior security cameras, cash registers that prompt employees to verify age of customers, and employee training. The draft resolution includes the findings required by the city code and policy, and includes conditions of approval as recommended by the police services. Staff does recommend approval of the use permit, and Sergeant Valentine, Lieutenant Valentine, of course, is here this evening. And the applicant's here. He indicates he's happy to answer any questions, doesn't necessarily need to address the commission otherwise. And, of course, staff is available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Okay. Does anybody have any questions of Nikki or Lieutenant Valentine? Or Hong Gao? Or Gail? Or Peggy? Okay, hearing none, we're going to bring it back up here. Does anybody have any comments they'd like to make on item 4? Hearing more none.
I'm looking at this and I'm wrestling with it. I know this isn't the PCRN that we often have. Look at directly kitty corner. We've got a Montessori school and there's a 7-Eleven. I know that 7-Eleven's been there since about 1979. I'm not sure when the school went in. I'm going to guess it was somewhere around 1990s, somewhere in there. I'm just wrestling with the school across the street that wraps around the service station. And I know that the intent is to allow people to pick up a cold beverage and go off the gas station property and move on. My concern is that maybe somebody doesn't leave and they're out there, and if something does happen, if one of the kids is around that school. So I'm not real comfortable with it. Just not comfortable with that idea.
And the school that you're referring to is which school?
The preschool that wraps around the service station.
That you enter off of?
You can enter off of
Lake Forest
and exit onto Tribuco.
Okay, and it's rather walled, right?
Yes, it is.
So a kid would have to escape, and there's kids that are dropped off and picked up because they're kind of little.
Yeah.
And I go to that station a lot. I've never seen any kids walking around looking for beer, but maybe.
I'm not saying the kids are going to be looking for beer. I'm just saying in my mind, there's a possibility that something could go wrong in that location. I'm just not comfortable with it being the school wrapping around the back of the station there. That's all. Okay.
And Lieutenant Valentine, did you find that same concern?
When I prepared the study, we followed the same PCN process that we put in place. Even though this wasn't a PCN, we followed the same procedure. It does not call for us to look at the adjacent businesses as far as what's near. When it comes to schools close to this business, I would look at the fact that the security measures that we have in place with the training for the cashiers, the cash registers required, and then the check for ID. The type of incidents you would encounter with people buying alcohol is not going to be from a minor of that age. I don't think it would be a significant factor. Obviously, I can't sit here and predict that it would never happen, but I don't think it would be a significant issue, being its location, being that there's a grocery store across the street that sells alcohol, the other gas station, and the 7-Eleven, and we haven't had any issues with minors trying to purchase alcohol.
Can I, Jerry, are you concerned that there might be somebody drinking on the premises that would wander over to the preschool, or what? I'm not quite sure what the concern is.
That's more of the concern, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm sure somebody from the preschool would call. I'm sure somebody from the station would call, or whatever. So, I mean, that's, okay, I just was wondering what the concern was.
Ideally, that would be the case. Okay, what happens if you have a non-ideal situation? I'm just telling you, I'm not comfortable with it.
Well, I live pretty close to that school, so I could actually drink alcohol in my home and walk over to the preschool. I mean, I just think it's a little far-fetched, in my opinion. I don't have that as a concern at all, that we would have people drinking, buying something, sitting in their car and drinking and walking over to a preschool because there's no parking lot. Lieutenant Valentine?
In addition, just to add a little further insight here, when I looked at the calls for service in the last year at similar businesses, all the calls for service that were alcohol related, all 9 of them in this area for the last year, so we're talking 9 calls for service that were alcohol related, dealt more with theft of alcohol. It dealt with people coming in late at night, grabbing beer and trying to run out the store, what you call a beer run. Those are typically the type of incidents we see. We don't see people drinking in these parking lots. We don't see people being drunk in these parking lots. We don't see a lot of calls of open containers in the parking lots. This is typically the type of calls for service that we have with these type of establishments.
I have two comments. First of all, I don't see any grounds for denying this application. I think its location, the neighborhood around it, we could go ahead and approve it. Probably the one little redeeming grace there is that it would reduce traffic by 1 or 2 trips, someone stopping, getting gas, getting a bottle of wine, 6-pack of beer, and then going home, as opposed to driving across the street or stopping again and going in to get beer and wine. So it does serve a purpose. I want to raise another issue that we should consider. Sometime in the middle of the year, we changed our policy about approving beer and wine licenses, and we sort of shifted into the idea of deciding each one of these applications based on the merit of the application itself. And so that means that in the past and in the future, as applications come in, we're going to be approving them, unless we say at some point there needs to be a capacity in the number of licenses that we're going to willing to approve. And perhaps we should set a point in time in the future and determine what is an adequate number, and then put a notice to all the businesses that if they intend to apply for a license, they should do it. Otherwise, we're going to sit here and wait for each application to come in, and we're going to end up approving them if they have merit.
Well, thank you. I just don't know that that's our jurisdiction. I think that number has to come from City Council and direct us to talk about it or what have you, but that's not on the agenda tonight, too. So, but it's a great idea to think about and maybe suggest in our comments to the City Council when we do that at the end of the year that would be something we'd like them to think about. It's a very great idea.
Right. I would also add a comment that there's a lot of requirements in the ABC Act as well. There's an overall limit on the number of beer and wine licenses, type 21, in any jurisdiction. So the ABC is controlling that to some extent. So it's not that we can keep issuing licenses forever and ever. So there is a limit on licenses. There are other things that are controlling, and the chairperson is right. If the commission as a group would like to pursue, would like to have further input into that subject, it would be appropriate to bring that up to the City Council, and that's coming up. I believe it will be in January this year. And if the commission has consensus that they want to look at that and the City Council directs you to look at it, then that would be a new work assignment.
I did have one question for the applicant, if he can come up and talk to me for a minute. One of the provisions in the use permit that they've offered to you is that there can be no consumption of alcohol on the premises or in the area around the premises. So around the perimeter of your property, there can be no consumption, as I understand it. The staff can correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Do you have surveillance cameras that will look at the perimeter of the property so you can tell if you got people loitering?
Yes, sir.
Or trying to consume alcohol?
Yes, sir. We have 16 cameras outside that are going to be on 24/7.
And your employees are trained to look for that?
Yes, sir. And this is a corporate site, so I mean, I wasn't going to take the commission's time, but I'm glad you brought it up. Staff, this is a corporate facility where they have extensive training for, making sure that they watch the cameras, pay attention, make sure there's no loitering going on, and they are very conscious about making sure that there's no, people sitting around just having beer on site, and that is a condition that the police department and also planning takes very seriously, and we do too as well. And that's not going to happen. And the operator of the facility have many other licenses, and on-site consumption is absolutely not allowed.
Well, my understanding is if ABC catches it, they can pull your license for that.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Well, I was just concerned that you had the proper surveillance, that your people could actually look for that and monitor it, especially with the preschool next door. I mean, that would be my concern.
We definitely have cameras, and it's going on 24/7, and it's recorded 24/7.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate your coming and answering that question.
Thank you, sir.
One other correction, I believe that the mobile station across the way does not have a liquor license.
No, they do not have a liquor license. They had applied under, I believe, and it required a PCN. It was approved by the Planning Commission, it was appealed to the City Council, and it was denied.
Well, this is kind of a unique situation because of the way the boundary falls between the two allocation districts. If that boundary had come differently, that store would have been in an overcapacity area. But because of the quirk, it's really not. But actually, there's 4 within easy walking distance in theory. So we probably should take that into account too in our consideration that under normal circumstances it would have required a PCN if the boundary hadn't fallen exactly where it did, which is kind of a quirk of luck for the Shell station.
I could just, if we go back to the PCN guidelines, there are different findings for PCN and there are different findings for use permit. So this is a use permit for off-site consumption. So we don't have that additional burden to say they have a unique product or anything else. So we have in the staff report, we've listed the use permit findings. The other big change that we see is that with the use permit requirement, we have the ability to add conditions. And when the Commission and the Council looked at the mobile gas station and their request, we weren't able to add any conditions of approval.
Well, and I agree with that. To me, there's a difference because I would suspect with this one, if this one gets approved, that the mobile station is going to come back again, very likely. But that's speculation on my part. But anyway, other than that, I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Concerning the application of the mobile station that was denied, I actually testified before the City Council in opposition to that approval for a number of reasons. And there were some very good reasons why that was denied. The mobile gas station is really a gas station with a little garage area where they repair cars and a very tiny little sandwich shop. And what was really proposed was the conversion of a sandwich shop into a beer and wine store, and that was the core of my opposition to it.
Okay, well, let's head back to Shell. And does anybody else have any more comments with regards to the use permit request from on item 4?
I'll make a motion we close the public hearing and bring the matter back up and approve the proposal as proposed by staff.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Let's vote.
I've abstained on purpose. I can't support it, but I won't vote against it.
Thank you. Okay, item 5. Thank you, Gail.
Now, item 5 is the use permit and a request for public convenience and necessity for off-site beer and wine sales at an existing grocery store. And as with the previous item, Nikki Wetzel has a staff report.
Thank you. As Gail said, this is a use permit and a PCN determination for the sale of beer and wine at the 99-cent only store and in the Lake Forest Town Center at the corner of Muirlands and Lake Forest. There are 7 existing alcohol sale licenses in the census tract, and that's is a PCN requested for this along with this use permit. The project proposes to sell beer and wine only in the existing grocery store. It would be at room temperature on shelves at the rear of the store. The overall display area would be less than 1% of the total floor area, and no alcoholic beverages would be served or consumed on site. The agenda report includes the Development Services Director report and the Police Services report, and as with the other application, these conclude that the use is not expected to result in nuisance activities, create need for additional police services, and that the use would be compatible with surrounding uses. Security provisions in place or proposed include security cameras, cash registers that prompt employees to verify the age of customers, and employee training. There are 2 draft resolutions, one for the PCN and one for the use permit. They include conditions of approval recommended by Police Services, and staff does recommend approval of the 2 resolutions. and Lieutenant Valentine is here, as is Steve Rawlings with the 99-cent store. He agrees with all the conditions of approval, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
I have a disclosure to make. A family trust in which my wife and I are beneficiaries maintain a short-term, non-assignable rental agreement with a mobile home park known as Forest Gardens. The space on which my wife and I maintain a manufactured home is lot number 249. This mobile home space is located 1,200 feet from the building that houses the 99-cent store, and it has applied for a Type 20 liquor license. As a resident and a planning commissioner, I should have the right to discuss this action from the dais as a planning commissioner or from the podium as a resident. There is no identifiable conflict of interest in which my wife and I could benefit financially, socially, or politically. The city staff has chosen to interpret my rental agreement as a leasehold interest in real property. I'm certain that the Assistant City Attorney will most likely advise the Commission concerning the Fair Political Practices Commission regulations and recommendations. The issue of a potential conflict of interest has led to an awkward and disappointing interaction with city staff. Unless directed otherwise by findings of the Planning Commission, I propose to participate in the hearing as a Planning Commissioner, and I also propose to abstain from voting on this matter. As a resident, I have a constitutional right to address the Commission on this issue if I so choose. Additionally, I have first-hand knowledge of that shopping center. I have first-hand knowledge of that building. I have first-hand knowledge of that store, and I have first-hand knowledge of the people that frequent that store, who are my neighbors. Additionally, for an example, I'll point out to you that the site plan that was included in my packet for this issue is not even the right store. This is not the floor plan of that store. It's up to you.
Well, this is all news to me, so I'd like to ask our attorney what the story is.
Thank you, Chair and Planning Commission members. Our office did take a look at potential conflict of interest. We are aware of the leasehold of Commissioner De Almeida, and after looking at the facts and looking at the various FPPC guidelines, we conclude that no conflict existed and that Commissioner De Almeida was free to participate as commissioner in this item.
So are you just learning of this?
No. We've had an ongoing discussion.
So she just said that you can discuss. Did I hear that right?
That's correct. We looked at this and we did not find a conflict.
Well,
Chair.
I'm not going to disagree with it because I agree with it, but that's not where we started. But we can continue.
Okay. I'm so very confused. She's saying you can participate, but you're not pleased that you can participate? Or you want to participate, but...
Let's move forward.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions, staff?
Well, I have a big one. This is not the floor plan of the store.
Nikki, do you have...
That was the floor plan that was provided to us by the applicant. Perhaps he'd like to address if there's going to be additional modifications to the proposal.
It's not even close. This looks more like the floor plan for the store up in the upper part of the city. This is not the store at this location.
Good evening. My name is Steve Rawlings. I'm here on behalf of 99 Cent Only Stores. I am here to answer any questions and so on and so forth. But let me start with the concern about the site plan and the floor plan. This is what was provided to me. I did do a site visit, and it seemed to be in keeping, although I will admit that I did not have the floor plan with me as I walked the store. I came in just to do a walkthrough of the location. I would say this, that if the exhibits are incorrect, that doesn't necessarily mean that the application and our decision-making process can't go forward, because in general, if the staff has visited the site and if commissioners have knowledge of the location of it, I don't know if there's anything germane inside the site plan other than the locations of the alcohol, beer and wine displays.
Well, it's more complicated than that, if I can
Please do. I mean, I'm more than happy.
If we look at the floor plan, you look at the upper left-hand corner of the sheet where it says the beer and wine display area, that's actually a set of double doors through which that leads to a storage area in that store. So it's very germane, the fact that the area for beer and wine display is actually a pair of double doors that lead to a storage area. So it's completely wrong.
Where are you showing?
I think we've got two sets of drawings here. You've got one hard set, and what we've got on here are not the same, I don't believe.
Yeah, this is on your...
It's not close to Jason.
Did you look at this on your iPad?
I'll look at yours. I hope you're not thinking that I don't know what I'm talking about.
No?
This is not the floor plan, and the area proposed for this display of beer and wine is actually, in reality, if you stand there in front of it, it's two doors that lead to a storage area. This is incorrect. In fact, every part of this floor plan is incorrect. That's not the floor plan for that building.
Nikki?
If the commission so chooses, we can go examine in a little closer detail the floor plan in relationship to the store if the commission wishes to continue the item.
Could I add something about the floor plan?
Of course.
I provided a location on this map of where I thought that they were going to locate the alcoholic beverages. But there's nothing in your municipal code that requires the applicant to place the exact location in his store. In fact, oftentimes re-merchandising of grocery stores happens on a very regular basis. I mean, you can go down a certain aisle for many, many years and then all of a sudden find out that the baked goods are no longer on aisle 7, now they're over there. So I provided it as a location as to where they typically locate those alcoholic beverages. But in the conditions of approval and the staff recommendation, I don't know if the precise location of where we intended to store the alcoholic beverages was factored in either the police chief's recommendation or staff's recommendation. It was provided as a guidance as to where we normally do that, but I would come forward tonight and say that if those are double doors, we'll simply move them into a different location that is somewhere near the back of the store where we typically do those, and here on the dais amend the proposal to you and disclose that may not be the precise location of there. The amount of square footage that we dedicate to it, I will continue to represent that is the amount of square footage that we intend to dedicate it, and whether it's precisely in that location or if in a different location, that would be my proposal to you folks this evening, and I don't see that the exact location of where the alcohol is going to be stored hasn't been a matter in many communities I work with, and it didn't seem to be a matter in the decision-making process of the people that made the recommendation.
If you go back and look at the business-related conditions that are on your use permit, it says there'll be no changes to the approved locations of the alcoholic beverages as shown on the approved floor plan without approval from the Chief of Police Services and Director of Development Services. Any major changes to the location of the alcoholic beverages as determined by the Chief of Police Services, the Director of Development Services, may require an amendment to the approved use permit. That's not quite what you said.
I stand corrected.
So that's the reason the floor plan is critical.
Fair enough. No, and if it is incorrect, it's incorrect, and I'll be more than happy to resubmit an exhibit. I guess my thing is that I will show the same number of square footage. It will just be in a different location.
I don't think the issue is the square footage, because you're not asking for any more than you've asked for any other 99-cent store in this city. Mm-hmm. You know, we've had this conversation a couple of times, you and I.
Yeah.
But I think the issue of the location of the store is important, especially in light of this condition. And it's interesting because the architect's drawing indicates that it appears to have the correct, street address for the store, but I also have to believe that Mr. De Almeida, who goes to that store a lot, probably knows it better than we do.
I'm not arguing. I'm a little bit surprised. I know that this is a relatively newer store for the 99-cent only chain, and when they give me the floor plans, I don't walk into stores with floor plans typically. I don't even, I just assume that this is a new store. And
yeah, in general, from what I've seen in other 99-cent stores, it's not that far off from what I've typically seen. But I think in this case, because of the way that condition's written, we need to have an accurate map, an accurate placement of where it's going to be, because that's how it'll be enforced going forward.
Well, my question is, because we have a lot of staff time into this agenda item, not just tonight, but the other night, and the other night, and the other night, and the 99-cent store certainly has a lot of staff time with Mr. Rawlings. Is there a way that we can indicate on this map tonight, and with the help of Mr. Rawlings, it says, okay, well, we're going to put the beer and wine 3 feet down? Or does something have to be submitted and inked?
Well, I would recommend that if this floor plan is incorrect, we'd want to substitute, we'd want the correct floor plan in the application. Where the alcohol is located is important to us. It's important to police services as well. So if we don't have the right site plan, we're saying that there was good surveillance within the store, it wasn't located close to a door, we would want to evaluate that. So if the issue is that this site plan, which is floor plan, which is certainly matches up with the site plan, but if there's something on the interior that was incorrectly shown, we should get the correct information.
could I be as bold as to offer a suggestion on that, is that it is possible that the Commission could make an amendment to the condition that Mr. Ludden just read, and defer it to an acceptable location to the Chief of Police and the Community Development Director, and then I can resubmit to them, and if they feel that that's an adequate location, then we can move on. So the Commission has the authority to amend a condition, and you could then delegate the precise location approval back to your police chief and/or your community development director.
Sorry, Jerry has been...
This is for Robert. Robert, we're looking at page 116 on the staff report, that floor plan, is that correct? Okay, and so the upper left-hand corner...
The floor plan is on page 116.
Yes, the floor plan's on page 116. Right, and the location that has been marked by the applicant is in the upper left-hand corner?
That's correct on that exhibit.
Oh, okay, and what you're indicating is the store, actually, there's not a solid wall back there, but there are doors that are there. That's it?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was understanding what was going on. Okay, great, thank you for the clarification.
I'd like to exercise my constitutional right to address this commission as a resident.
I would like to add, perhaps this could help with looking at the floor plan. There's actually a storage area inside. If you look at your exhibit, there is a storage area and I believe a restroom area behind the general merchandising area, and there are doors within that area. So there's more of the building. The alcohol is not located along the edge of the building. There's a back-of-house issue there.
Right. Yeah, I see that. And it doesn't appear from this drawing that there is a door open, but it does appear that there is a roll-up door and an exit door in that storage area.
Point of order here. We're under staff questions right now, right? Questions of staff, which means we're not taking comments from the public right now. So, thank you. Do you not want to participate up here, Commissioner? I don't want you to participate there. You can participate here.
There's technically a problem, and
I don't want you to participate from that microphone.
I can. I have a constitutional...
We are not in that part of our meeting right now.
Well, let me
We're
know
at
when I
staff.
can.
Okay. All right. We're back at staff, questions of staff. And can you repeat, Gail, what you just clarified?
Well, I just noted that on the floor plan that is on page 116, if you walk to the rear of the store, there's a general merchandising area. The beer and wine is proposed in the upper left-hand corner of the merchandise area. There is an additional area that's the back of the house of the store, and that area does have doors that lead to the outside. It says it has a stock room. I believe the restrooms are also back there. So there's like 2 layers to the store, and perhaps that clarifies, or, we'd have to ask Commissioner Delmeda if that's perhaps what he observed.
Well, I'd like to ask him, but he's left his seat.
May I?
Here. We're not at public comments yet. All right, we won't ask him. So, are you suggesting, Gail, then, that possibly the map as we see it does not have a door in front of where the beer wine display area indicates?
The site plan, the floor plan of the store does not have any doors in the beer and wine display area. The doors are located in a behind-the-scenes area. It looks like you access through a double door that the employees would go back in that area, and there are doors back in that area.
So do we know that this drawing is accurate to what is the actual site, or is that the question?
That appears to be the question, and the only way to determine that would be to send, I'm sure Jennifer knows, she's not here this evening, but, to go out and physically walk with this floor plan through the store to make sure everything coincides. So we need to go and do a field check on that.
So then back to the other question that the gentleman had. If we should decide to approve the license, can we have with the caveat or whatever that the drawing is correct at some point, and that the alcohol is going to be displayed in an area that's not by a door or that kind of thing? Is that possible to go that route, or do we have to come back for the whole thing?
No, if you could indicate on this floor plan, with some kind of a marking or something, that this is where the alcohol is going to be located, that would be fine.
So, Mr. Rawlings? It's just been suggested that we take the drawing and we indicate on the drawing where you would like to have the beer and wine sold from?
The alternative location would be not in that corner, and it would be at a location that would be mid-aisle along that left wall, and I can certainly draw on it, and we could do a pass-around. If that would...
Lieutenant Valentine is shaking his head yes, as I'm thinking you're saying that's a location that would be approved by you and your office?
For police services, things we look at is we don't want alcohol stored near the front of the store. We want it to be at the back of the store. That makes it more difficult for people to come in, grab it, and run out because they have to enter deeper into the store. So those are things that we look at. We look at the location within the store and the visibility of that location from the cashier.
Let me ask Mr. Rawls, these exits that are at the rear of the store, could somebody conceivably grab something out of the store and run out the back of the store? Are these?
I mean, certainly. I mean, anything is possible. I mean, we try to locate them also for our own internal purposes into an area that we feel pretty comfortable leaving, storing it. And typically in this back corner there is the area that we typically.
I'd like to suggest that we take a 5-minute recess and you discuss the site plan with Gail, make some drawings, we pass it around, and we meet back here in 5 minutes. Testing. There we go. Okay, we're going to come back to order here. And we're going to continue our discussion with regards to this item. But it's been recommended by Lieutenant Valentine and our staff that we probably best go back and make sure that this location of the beer and wine can be placed where it shows on this map, and if the map is incorrect, that it would be corrected. So with that, does anybody else have any more questions of staff from the dais? Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go to, Jerry?
Well, do you want to go ahead and just make a motion to continue this item to the next?
Actually, what I'd like to do is to go through public comments first, if you don't mind. So is there any more questions of staff? All right, hearing none, we are going to move on to public comments. Peggy.
Robert D. Almeida.
Thank you. I know this is unusual, but I had to choose this.
Might you state your name and city of residence?
Robert Almeida, it's on the card. Robert Almeida. I live at 24001 Muirlands Boulevard, City of Lake Forest.
Thank you.
It's really a constitutional issue, the right for me to exercise this right, and that's why I'm doing it. In the past, when I've attempted to discuss items, I've sort of been ruled out of order. And what I want to say to all of you, my fellow commissioners, I'm going to choose my words wisely, it's pretty irresponsible of us to go ahead and approve this application with the wrong floor plan. And I don't mean just one gondola out of place, everything, the location of the restrooms, the location of the storage area, the location of the checkout counters, the location of produce, everything is incorrect. And I don't see how for 1 minute you can say, oh, we'll just doctor it up over here, we'll have an ex parte meeting over here, and we'll figure it out, and let's not waste any time, let's give them their approval. Hey, they made a mistake here, it's wrong, you should send them back. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Okay, we'll bring it back up here. So maybe you missed it, Commissioner De Almeida, but we decided that we were going to continue the item and get the correct drawing. So does anybody else have any more comments up here, or shall we just move to continue?
Make a motion that we close the public hearing and move that we continue this item to the following month until we get the plan straightened out.
Second?
I'll second.
All right, let's vote. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner De Almeida, for bringing it to our attention that that was an incorrect drawing. We really appreciate that. Had you mentioned that to staff before tonight's meeting?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
Because of the treatment I received getting to this point.
Okay. With that, let's go on to director comments.
Yes, I wanted to remind the Commission that we do have the opportunity to sum up our year in review and prepare a report along with any recommendations that the Commission has of things they'd like the City Council to consider. And we do that typically in the month of January. So we'll help you by providing a list of all the types of applications that we heard this year. And we'll have that most likely on your first meeting in January. And you can review those and come up with any sort of recommendations. The chair of the Planning Commission will then be invited to a City Council meeting to present the year in review and any recommendations that the Commission has. That's all.
Thank you. City Attorney?
No comment.
All right. We'll start with you, Jerry. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate, it's always good to see you, Lieutenant Valentine. Thank you. Appreciate the work that you do. Your officers, highly valued. Right? And staff, again, another good job. I'd like to thank Commissioner De Almeida. Thank you for what you did to bring something that was wrong to the forefront so that we have a chance to take a look at it and get it resolved correctly.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a question for you, Gail, if we could. Is there a way that we can get some kind of an understanding as to what the maximum number of Type 20 and Type 21 licenses we're going to hit when, considering the city being fully built out? Is there something we should be working at if sometime in the future, if that number could be given to us? I think that might be helpful.
We can provide that to you. It's provided by the state. Now, we have,
Okay.
as we continue to grow, some of these factors are based on census, and we don't know ultimately how census tracts will be.
Right.
But what I had mentioned was the state comes up, ABC has a overall limit on liquor license based on total county statistics. And there are actually 3 cities in Orange County that have already reached their maximum number. But that information is easy. We'll get it for you and just send it in the next status report.
Okay, so that's population-driven then, more or less?
Yes, it's population-driven, and the state ABC actually prepares it for every single county in the state of California, and they publish that.
Okay.
We've included that in some of our reports to the City Council, so we'll just pull that data and
Great.
send that to you.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I have one final comment. I had the dubious pleasure, or shall I say lack of pleasure, I'm not sure it was which way. It was fun, but it wasn't much fun, trying to get into Gateway Center at roughly 12:30 yesterday to have lunch. And I think that probably maybe 10% of Irvine and maybe 40% of Lake Forest was trying to do the same thing at the same time. My gut reaction was to just leave and not enjoy the reason that I had gone there, which I didn't do, but I just found myself being totally frustrated with trying to find a parking place. And I literally drove the entire back, sides, every row in between, only to come into contact with the drive aisles with the cones separating the ways in and out. And I don't know what can be done about that, but I'd sure like to explore the possibilities, and I hate to think that we might have a hotel go in there and create even more of a disastrous kind of a situation, in my opinion. So,
Let me comment on that, because we do have a hotel proposed for that site, and will be coming before the commission, most likely at your next meeting. We've had a lot of meetings with the applicant. They've been working on parking management strategies. The hotel will introduce subterranean parking, so we'll actually increase parking on site. We're also looking at the median configuration, so we'll have a full contingent of Public Works staff here, as well as the applicant, and certainly it's a very popular location.
Yeah.
It's popular, and there's a huge number of employees in the vicinity.
Right. Having 3 drive-in and establishments all in a row there, I think, just creates just a nightmare of trying to move traffic in a fluid situation there when you've only got one way in and one way out. Not a fun place to try to get in and out of during peak periods.
Concur with Commissioner Verplank on that. I've also talked to several of the tenants over there, and they're extremely concerned about the parking situation in terms of what it's going to do to their business, because they're really worried about that. So it's something we want to, I'm sure, take a really good, serious look at. Again, my appreciation to Commissioner De Almeida for finding that map mistake. I think that was a kind of a critical item tonight in light of where things are. Appreciate you doing that. I've been in that store twice, and I couldn't have told you where all that stuff was. But anyway, I appreciate the work of staff tonight, again, and good job, and appreciate the help that our city attorney gave me today. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. And to you, Lieutenant Valentine, I always appreciate what you do. I know it's not always a fun job, and we appreciate all that the Sheriff's Department does for us in this city. So thank you. Thank you to all my fellow commissioners, too. This was an interesting night.
And just to go onto the parking issue there, when I was on the traffic, Citizens Traffic Advisory Group, one of my suggestions was to make that left turn pocket just extended all the way, but apparently you have the problem with Irvine Subaru. That's their only exit and egress, so you couldn't do that. So that is an issue. They did make the left turn longer, and they also made it the red light not as long, so they did adjust the signaling to try and get people in that, because I noticed the same thing. It's a problem, and then they back into the number one lane, and then you have a problem with the traffic going through, and so it is an issue. So, and again, maybe a parking structure or something to that effect that might be an answer to that too. But anyway,
Great. Like Gail said, the project will be coming before the Planning Commission, possibly at the next meeting, so the Commission can, vet the project and discuss that at that meeting.
I understand through verbal communication with the Assistant City Attorney that I'm fully eligible to participate in this matter when it comes forward, and I'm entitled to vote on this matter. Is that correct?
That's correct, and I assume that you're referring to the 99-cent store application.
I should have mentioned it, yes.
Yes. Like I mentioned, we did look at the conflict, and we always take a look to make sure and take a hard look at whether there's potential conflicts. And looking at the facts as applied to the rules, we saw no conflict. So yes, Commissioner De Almeida can participate fully in the 99-cent store decision.
Thank you. The source of irritation is that we keep saying there's a conflict. There is no conflict. A conflict was never established. Never once did staff identify a conflict. But it's over. Thank you.
Is there when you're close to it, isn't there a rule that when you live close to an item that we're discussing, that's the conflict?
There are FPPC rules that are a little bit out of date that discuss how close a property can be to a potential application. We took a look at the new rules that are applied, and we saw no conflict.
Oh, perfect.
It continues to be an irritation. We keep talking about it. Okay, the latest rule is what, 500 feet? My home is 1,200 feet away. And I thought that was crystal clear when we started out. Just incidentally, Councilman Garner's home is 1,500 feet from that property. I mean, we keep talking about it. It irritated me immensely, and it embarrassed me, and I hope it never happens again.
Okay. Well, I would just like to say that I think that conflict or no, I'm glad that there's no more conflict, and we're on board, and we're gonna move forward for the next meeting on the 99-cent store. But I would just like to ask all of us that if we do have something that we see in our packets that can be resolved before the meeting, like a map that might be inaccurate, that if we're frustrated or we're not, or we're happy and we're go-lucky, it's really important that we bring it to staff's attention, because plain stump the staff is not what we should be doing here, because when we stump the staff, now they have to go back, and now we're going to be spending a lot more time and effort on this particular item. So that's just mine. And with that, I am going to call the meeting
Well, wait a minute,
closed.
I'm not done yet. That was a willful act on my part, because I wanted to make sure we didn't just patch it up and move it forward because we're so anxious to get these things approved.
Okay.
I want it to be done correctly, and that's why I waited. And there was an attempt here earlier to patch it up and say, oh, well, we'll draw a line somewhere else, we'll do something else. That's irresponsible.
Okay, before we close, I have another comment, if I might.
Sure.
We're coming up on what I think is one of the most thought-provoking times of our history, and that's Thanksgiving. And so I'd like us all to think about that, and I'd like to wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. And with that, we'll be adjourned.